community strong. So of course I support that.
Thank you. Excuse me. The next question relates to immigration. It indicates, and will be for Mr. Descano first, do you believe that a state prosecutor has a responsibility to consider the potential immigration consequences of the accused? And if yes, how would you implement that in your office?
Wonderful question. I think yes, the answer is clearly yes. State prosecutor does have the responsibility to take that into consideration. You know, some people call those collateral consequences. They're not collateral, they ruin lives, right? These deportation consequences. These are not secondary thoughts. The job of the Commonwealth's attorney is to represent our values. And if our Fairfax County values say that everyone is welcome, then yeah, of course it's the job of your elected representative to make that and put that in a policy. That's why, for example, I talked about I'm never going to charge a simple possession of marijuana case. Because even if you go through that diversion program, there are immigration consequences. If you have slightly more than, say, I believe it's an ounce of marijuana, you are automatically deportable. And even if you have less than that, you are what's called excludable, which means if you leave the country, you can't come back in. That's a problem. So not only is that one reason why I won't charge those types of cases, what I'll do is I will put policies and procedures in place to take into account immigration consequences when it comes to charging. Because if you guys know prosecution, you know that you can take a situation, you can charge it in 15 different ways, right? There are laws on the books. You can decide in your discretion what the best one to charge is. I want my prosecutors to, whenever possible, charge in a way that limits or avoids immigration consequences. Not only because it keeps us strong, but it's a question of fairness. It's a question of equality. If you have two people who did the same thing, and one person's punishment includes the fact that they'll be ripped apart from their family and sent away to another country, and somebody else's is that they'll just go to jail or they'll have to pay a fine, that's not equality. That's not equal. That's not what we strive for in Fairfax County. So those values, again, that's why values are important, because they influence, they inform the policies and procedures that we're going to build in this office. So I'm going to take that up as a challenge, because I will do everything in my power to keep our community strong, and that includes taking immigration consequences into effect.
Thank you. The next question will be posed first to Mr. Morrogh, and it relates to...
That was just...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
You're right.
I'm sorry. It's been a long process. I'll be brief on it. I don't disagree with Steve. I think he's got some good points there. We do take into account immigration circumstances with all of our cases. In fact, the first time I ran, I was criticized because at the preliminary hearing stage was the probable cause hearing. The officers get the warrants. We weed through them. I was accused of breaking down from felonies 72% of all the cases. It's closer to like 2/3. In other words, we drop them from felonies to misdemeanors because I don't believe in overcharging. And as far as this being a bully pulpit, the thing I hate the most in the world, if I hate anything, is bullying. I'm no bully, and I won't let my office bully anyone, especially someone who is at a disadvantage, like an immigrant who could be in trouble. So we take that into account. We work with attorneys to fashion solutions that can protect their rights. Nobody should be deported from the country for minor things that everybody does. I want to find a way to keep these folks here and live with us and be a part of our community. I don't think incarceration is the answer to everything, and I'll work hard to protect our immigrant community because I care deeply about them, and I care deeply about their success in this country, and I welcome them, and I always work with them, and so does my office. That's our policy.
Thank you. My apologies. I flipped my card too soon. So the next question will begin with Mr. Morrogh, and it addresses law enforcement and racial bias. It indicates that there is a recent study conducted at Stanford that looked at almost 100 million traffic stops. It indicates that there are statistics that show that how a law enforcement officer's decisions during a traffic stop can be related to racial or implicit bias. If re-elected, how would you work with law enforcement to combat this?
Well, I've read that study. It's very complex. Some of the the data is a bit confusing, but I think you'd have to be blind not to realize that there's prejudice in the community, and to say like, oh, I'm not prejudiced, that's maybe not right, because it depends on how you grow up and what you think, and sometimes you're not aware of things that are subtly influencing you. So I think the first step is to be aware of the problem and how minorities suffer under that kind of thinking. The police department, I know, trains on that. We review all of our cases when stops are challenged and whatnot. We review it. We're fair to everybody. That's the main goal of my job, is to protect you, but also be fair to the defendants. I'm the only one in the system who has to be fair to everyone. The defense attorneys, their job's just as important as mine, but their job isn't to do justice, and they don't have to try to be nice to the victim or tell me about evidence they have. Their job is to protect the rights of the defendant. They do a great job in our county. I'm proud of our public defenders and our defense bar. But my job is to protect everyone, including the defendant. I am sensitive to these issues. My staff is sensitive to these issues. We get training on these things. But can I wipe it out personally? I don't think so. I'll do everything I can to. But the first step, again, is to recognize that that's real. And, talking to people, I talked at a church in Reston a while back, and some of the stories people told me, they were just shocking. There must have been 400 people there. And you really have to listen. We have to listen to each other and understand that this is real. And I work every day to be fair to everybody. And again, we do train on these things. Implicit bias is a training we have. All sorts of trainings that we do in this. And we got to do more. But we got to get more people of color into the system. That's why I have a shadow program, so we can learn from each other.
Thank you.
It's clear that this happens. I don't think any one of us can debate that this is an issue and a real problem in our county. When I would travel around on the police civilian review panel and talk to people, this is the thing that I heard all the time. We get policed differently. Things happen. And, we have a lot of great police in our county, but that shouldn't stop us from going after bad actors. And that shouldn't stop us from seeing systemic discrimination where it may lay. Because that's the real problem here. It's not out-and-out racist individuals acting in a racist manner. It is a systemic problem. And simply being aware of it doesn't fix the problem. That's why one of the things I want to do is I want to invite outside organizations to come in and go through our data so we can find out where there is racial discrimination, systemic discrimination, and focus on it like a laser and root it out. Because that is the charge of the Commonwealth's attorney. The other thing that I want to do that you can do as a Commonwealth's attorney is refuse to bring cases that are the result of racial discrimination or bad policing. That's the power of the Commonwealth's attorney. The Commonwealth's attorney is the last check, the person who needs to make sure that every case that runs through that office has been policed correctly, is done the right way, and is fair and just. And if we see systemic discrimination and we start tossing cases because of it, that'll help move the ball forward here. And I think, again, the idea that this position is a bully pulpit position, something that can make change, something that can advocate, people listen to it, build relationships with the decision makers. That is where we come in. That's another area where we come into play. Because, too often marginalized communities are ignored, and they need someone in the system fighting for them.
Thank you. I have received an alert that we have reached our time in the forum. I would just like to extend a thank you to both of the candidates for maintaining their decorum here this afternoon.